Dallas has just been on a tear. I believe we can attribute that to Jason Robertson. Also, Jake Ottinger, who's really stepped in.
Yeah, so we can compare a rookie QB to a toddler. Hayward's absence for this game will be significant, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game turns into a blowout as of late.
The Golden Knights just can't pull it. I really think the Avalanche are determined this year.
They made so many moves and grabbed so many guys that they have to win a championship or at least make the finals. They were on our championship and bust.
The same self, the only year he won an MVP was the year he cheated, which really should put something against that MVP. But
Yeah, and as a Cowboys fan, I have learned how dangerously good Aaron Rodgers has been with he can just thread a pass.
Hello, I am Ruby Ackerman, and you are listening to Outsider's Opinion with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NFL Opinions of the Week. We did little Opinions of the Week, but it was mostly a Thanksgiving episode. But now we're going to talk. Hope you had an excellent Thanksgiving, had some great food and all that stuff. But let's just go over the Thanksgiving games real quick, Austin. I was surprised with how close they were. Cowboys and Giants was close, and then the Giants just failed. I think it was that big fourth down. That was the big play to me that Jones couldn't connect with Saquon.
Yeah, and I know the pass was kind of behind Saquon, but Saquon's got to make that catch, and it is what it is. But you're right. Even though the score ended 28-20, it did not feel like a 28-20 game.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we've seen the Cowboys low with the Packers, the high with the Vikings, and then kind of the middle with the Giants. So I'm interested to see what happens against the Colts this week.
Yeah, that should not be a hard team. So
yeah, but the Cowboys could mess up. But now I really want to talk about the Lions game because I think Josh Allen threw 2 picks again. And then I saw the dart at the end of the game to set up the field goal.
yeah, and this has kind of been my point. Yes, he won, but it wasn't commanding against a defense that isn't great. Like, if we're going to talk about the Lions, we're not going to be talking about their defense, at least when we're talking about positive things this year. They've given up some of the most points in the league, and they're a big reason why this team is where it is. So to see Josh Allen struggle a little bit and almost lose the game, it's a little disheartening.
So I think with a commanding team, you don't have to be commanding in the middle of the season. I think if a team's commanding, I'll go, wow. But with a team like the Bills, I just need to see them work through their issues because Allen does have issues right now. Because if you can fix it before the playoffs, and then just as long as it's not losing your games, which they were able to pull it out. So now we just need to see what happens near the end and then how he performs in the playoffs.
I guess, but we keep pushing off judgment.
Well, I just think he makes some incredible plays. To me, that throw was amazing that he did to Diggs, or that he threw to Diggs.
He has great moments every once in a while, and even some great plays back to back, but he also makes some not good plays. I feel like we're at the point now in his career where he needs to get rid of the majority of those poor plays. And yes, they did still win, so there was some positive to take out of it, but it definitely was not a win in the same light that the Bills would have been happy with.
I can see your point. I'm gonna stick by. Let's see if he has another bad year in the playoffs, or not. If the Bills don't go far, then I think he will definitely get some judgment.
Yeah. A team I want to talk about is Washington. They're 6-1 since week 6. Yeah, after Wentz went down. I think.
I would believe you're correct. It's their only loss because they beat the Commanders.
Well, they are the Commanders.
Well, the Commanders beat the Falcons, beat the Texans, beat the Eagles. So it's 3. Lost to the Vikings. So there's 1. Then 1, 4. Yeah, I believe they're 6-1. Yeah, you are correct.
Yeah, so this has turned out to be a dominant team. They just got Chase Young back because he was hurt. So I feel like this team is dangerous. And two things I think I need to mention is one, we get, as fans, we get very, very worried when a team starts poorly and then we say they're bad. And then when they do good, we're surprised. But this was a Washington team 2 years ago that was primed to be extremely good with a great defense. And they still had Terry McLaurin and all the other guys. But I feel like they kind of went away from their system whenever Taylor Heineke was not QB. And last year they had a lot of injuries, but this year you can't go back to Carson Wentz. I don't think you can.
Yeah, you can't. You're winning, and it seems like this team does play better or puts more effort in than Carson Wentz, which is something we saw with the Jets, or that's what it looked like last week.
Yeah, with Mike White.
Yeah, and he did look good. He did play against the Bears team. I was surprised though they chose Mike White over Joe Flacco. I do agree. I know I said previously to stay with Zach Wilson. I was wrong with that. Just with the bad game and him going, yeah, the offense did nothing wrong. Yeah, dude. You should be replaced. I thought they were going to go with Flacco though.
I understand, and I feel like this is more of a let's test everything right now. We've already seen Flacco, so we know what we got. But with White, we hadn't seen him since last year, so people improve, people regress, people get better or get worse or everything else. So I feel like they were like, we know what Flacco looks like this year. We know now what Zach Wilson looks like this year. Let's see what White is. And if White plays bad, I think White was on a very, very thin sheet of ice. Where if he played bad this game, it was Flacco's team. But obviously, he played absolutely outstanding. And like you mentioned, it was against the Bears, so it wasn't the greatest opponent ever. But it definitely shows that Mike White deserves a starting job right now.
Yeah, and since Mike White is young, I think it was a good decision to start him now against the Bears defense that isn't good, because now this week they face a Vikings team. So now you kind of have Mike White riding that confidence. And so it would have, and then it goes Vikings, Bills, then Lions, Jaguars, Seahawks, Dolphins. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Jets in this 2-week stretch.
Yeah, it's definitely going to show us whether or not they're a playoff team or if they're going to get in, because there's a lot of teams at the edge right there that are fighting for that last playoff spot.
Yes, and Jets are third in the AFC East. And then one more thing I want to talk about is the Dolphins. Have you heard about the Tua stuff and him and his struggles last year?
Talking about how he looks in the mirror and says he suck.
Yeah, and then Mike McDaniels kind of empowered him. Well, did empower.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what you're supposed to do as a coach, partially, because Tua was not good last year. Like, to say that he was good is disingenuous, but I feel like the new confidence and the new scheme and Tyreek Hill has really shown that with the right pieces, the right coaches, he can be a great player.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure how I felt about the Mike McDaniel hire, but it seems to be working out, and the Dolphins are sitting at the first as the number one team in the AFC East.
Yeah, and again, that's on a Bills team that was supposed to win it and has had many opportunities to do so, but has yet to capitalize.
Yeah, I would definitely call this Bills season underwhelming because I had the bar set pretty high for them.
Yeah, and understandably so.
And then we'll go to the Eagles. They seem to be struggling of late, and to me, the NFC is still wide open because the Eagles face the Titans, and then I think that Cowboys Christmas Eve game is going to be huge. So if the Eagles falter late, maybe the Vikings take that number 1 seed, or maybe even the Cowboys take that number 1 seed. Not sure.
Yeah, and I'm really concerned about this Eagles team because they don't look as dominant. And against against the Packers team that is so hurt, Aaron Rodgers goes out with an injury, and we're still right there, almost winning the game. That's not how it's supposed to be. A Packers team that's lost a lot of games, and even though most of those games we lost were really close, like we never really got blown out on it often. But it definitely shows this Eagles team has some flaws, and obviously they're lost against Washington, but I definitely think it's open. I think the Vikings, the Cowboys, definitely have a shot to get the 1 seed, but they're going to have to act fast because the Eagles team has set themselves up for greatness with how they start the year.
All right. And then we're going to do some rapid fire questions. A little short episode, but I've 3 rapid fire questions to you. Who do you think is a better contender, Niners or Seahawks?
Seahawks. And I'm going to say Seahawks because I think if they can get their defense to look like it did in the middle of the season, they could be a really good team. With the Niners, I don't trust Jimmy. And to say contender means you have to trust the QB, and I don't trust. That was really, when you say contender and the teams are relatively close, like I understand, like obviously the 49ers as a squad are probably better. The Seahawks have a better head coach at winning, in my opinion. I am higher on Geno right now than I am on Jimmy Garoppolo. And I feel like their defense, while it is lackluster against the Raiders, like Josh Jacobs had 300 yards, 229 on the ground, and like 74 in the air. Once they get that figured out, which they have to if they're going to be a contender, I would take them.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to go Niners because to me they're a dangerous team because they might be. I think they're in the wild card spot, right? Or no? They're
No,
okay.
They're winning their division.
Oh, they're winning it? Oh, okay. But to me, they can be a team that sneaks in and then they go off in the playoffs because if McCaffrey stays healthy, Debo stays healthy, I think those pieces elevate Garoppolo. But it will be interesting to see how it goes. Okay. And then who ends up being their number 1 team in the AFC?
Chiefs.
Okay. Do you
I don't
think
think it's really all that close.
Okay. Do you think they will win the playoffs and go into the Super Bowl?
I don't know. That's something I have to wait to see because injuries happen. But when we get to our playoff predictions, you'll find out.
Okay. Do you think there's another team close in that tier with the Chiefs?
No.
Okay. Cool. And now, final one. Who wins, Dolphins or Niners next week? Oh, and then I have one more after this.
Dolphins, Niners, I'll go Dolphins. Mike McDaniel played or coached with the 49ers. I feel like he could give some a helping hand to his defensive coordinator to kind of like show him around what the offense used to be. And obviously some changes will be there because obviously now they have Christian McCaffrey. But I like this Dolphins team.
Okay. I actually have 2 more questions. And then I'm going to end with this last one. Now I'll end the episode. But what did you think of – I have one more after this. What did you think of Trevor Lawrence and that drive to beat the Ravens?
It was impressive. I was more impressed with Marvin Jones, back-to-back catches to win him the game. But I don't feel like Trevor Lawrence was the talking point for that game. I feel like it was the Ravens who blew the lead again. And a Ravens team that's now not even leading their division because the Bengals passed them. And I don't know whether it's time management or play calling or what the issue is, but the Ravens have to get this fixed. I would venture to say that the Ravens may not be a playoff team if they're not careful.
Yeah, I would agree.
The Patriots, I don't think, are in a playoff spot. I think they're 8th because they lost to the Vikings, even though Hunter Henry definitely caught that ball, which is terrible, but it is what it is. But the Ravens could fall out of the playoff spot.
Yeah, and even in the playoffs, you can't trust that defense. And I think it's like a personnel issue. They just don't have the pass rush to do it. But I do think we're starting to see Lawrence and what having an experienced head coach helps for Lawrence because I just chalk up last year. You were just in a bad situation, Lawrence, and then so I'm kind of seeing there are some moments, and there were some moments last year, but next year, I think I'm going to be more critical of Lawrence.
Yeah, and I definitely I can see why you're waiting because a lot of things get to work out. But now he actually has a good head coach, so that excuse is gone.
And then he will. You mentioned Marvin Jones. I also think Marvin. No, there's not another Marvin Jones. There's not
No,
another.
it's Zay
There's
Jones.
Zay Jones, and then there's Christian Kirk.
Yeah.
And then I think there's just one. If you add a dominant wide receiver, I think that's an excellent wide receiving core, which they did
It already is a good one, so
because they added Calvin Ridley.
yeah. So, but even without Calvin, I still think it's a good wide receiving core because all those guys have speed, and Christian Kirk is really good. He's had a lot of good weeks, but the issue with the Jaguars has been their growth. They have a lot of young guys, so they just got to get used to it.
All right. Before I ask this question, because I wanted to end the episode, thank you all for listening. Austin, do you have any final thoughts?
No.
All right. Who starts for the Packers? Jordan Love or Aaron Rodgers?
Jordan Love.